To begin at the beginning. It is spring. Time passes. Listen. Time passes. Come closer now. Only you can hear. And big. Captain Cat, the retired blind sea captain, asleep in his bunk in the sea-shelled ship-in-bottle, ship-shaped best cabin of schooner house, dreams of never such seas as any that swamped the decks of his SS Kidwelly, bellying over the bedclothes, and jellyfish slippery sucking him down salt deep into the davy dark, where the fish come biting out and nibble him down to his wishbone, and the long-drowned nuzzle up to him.
Remember me, Captain?
You're dancing, Williams?
I lost my step in Nantucket.
Do you see me, Captain? The white ball talking. I'm Tom Fred, the donkey man. We shared the same girl once. Her name was Mrs. Probert.
Rosie Probert, 33 Duck Lane. Come on up, boys. I'm dead.
Hold me, Captain. I'm Jonah Jarvis. Come to a bad end. Very enjoyable.
Alfred Pomeroy Jones, sea lawyer, born in Mumble, sung like a linnet, crowned you with a flagon, tattooed with mermaids, thirst like a dredger, died of blisters.
This skull at your ear wall is...
Curly Bevan! Tell my auntie it was me that pawned the Ormolu clock.
Aye, aye, Curly.
Tell my missus, no, I never.
I never done what she said, I never.
Yes, they did.
And who brings coconuts and shawls and parrots to my Gwen now?
How's it about?
How's the tenors in Dowlice?
Who milks the cows in my squin?
When she smiles, is there dimples?
What's the smell of parsley?
Oh, my dead dears.
Come now, drift up the dark. Come up the drifting sea-dark street now, in the dark night sea-sawing like the sea, to the Bible-black, airless attic over Jack Black the cobbler's shop, where alone and savagely Jack Black sleeps in a nightshirt tied to his ankles with elastic and dreams of chasing the naughty couples down the grass-green, gooseberry double bed of the wood, flogging the tosspots in the spit and sawdust, driving out the bare, bold girls from the sixpenny hops of his nightmares. From where you are, you can hear in Cockle Row in the spring, moonless night, Miss Price, dressmaker and sweet shopkeeper, dream of her lover, tall as the town clock tower, Samson syrup gold-maned, whacking-thighed and piping hot, thunderbolt-based and barnacle-breasted, flailing up the cockles with his eyes like blow lamps, and scooping low over her lonely, loving, hot water bottle body.
Mavanui Price.
Mr. Mark Edward.
I am a draper, mad with love. Throw away your little bed socks and your Welsh wool knitted jacket. I will warm the sheets like an electric toaster. I will lie by your side like the Sunday roast.
I will knit you a wallet to forget-me-not blue for the money to be comfy. I will warm your heart by the fire so that you can slip it under your vest when the shop is closed.
Mavanui, before the mice gnaw at your bottom drawer, will you say?
Yes, Mog, yes, Mog, yes, yes, yes.
And all the bells of the tills of the town shall ring for our wedding.
And in the little pink-eyed cottage next to the undertaker's lie alone the 17 snoring, gentle stone of Mr. Waldo. Rabbit catcher, barber, herbalist, cat doctor, quack, his fat pink hands palms up over the edge of the patchwork quilt, his black boots neat and tidy in the washing basin, his bowler on a nail above the bed, a milk stout and a slice of cold bread pudding under the pillow. And dripping in the dark, he dreams of...
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed at home. This little piggy had roast beef. This little piggy had none. And this little piggy went all the way home to...
Waldo!
Yes, Bloodwin, love?
Oh, what'll the neighbours say? What'll the neighbours?
Poor Mrs. Waldo, what she puts up with. Never should have married if she didn't have to. Same as her mother. There's a husband for you. Bad as his father. And you know where he ended. Up in the asylum. Oh, it makes my heart bleed. What he'll do for drink. He sold the pianola and her sewing machine. Falling in the gutter. Talking to the lamppost. Using language. Singing in the W. Poor Mrs. Waldo.
Oh, Waldo.
Ash, love, ash. I'm widower Waldo now.
Now, in her iceberg white, holily laundered crinoline nightgown and a virtuous polar sheets, in her spruced and scoured, dust-defying bedroom in trig and trim Bayview, a house for paying guests at the top of the town. Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard, widow, twice, of Mr. Ogmore, linoleum, retired, and Mr. Pritchard, failed bookmaker, who, maddened by bezooming, swabbing and scrubbing, the voice of the vacuum cleaner and the fume of polish, ironically swallowed disinfectant, fidgets in her rinsed sleep, wakes in a dream, and nudges in the ribs. Dead, Mr. Ogmore. Dead, Mr. Pritchard. Ghostly on either side.
Mr. Ogmore, Mr. Pritchard, it is time to inhale your balsam.
Oh, Mrs. Ogmore. Oh, Mrs. Pritchard.
Soon it will be time to get up. Tell me your tasks, in order.
I must put my pajamas in the drawer marked pajamas.
I must take my cold baths, which is good for me.
I must wear my flannel band to ward off sciatica.
I must dress behind the curtain and put on my apron.
I must blow my nose
In the garden, if you please.
in a piece of tissue paper which I afterwards burn.
I must take my salts, which are
I must
nature's
boil the
friend.
drinking water because
I
of
must drink my
germs.
herb tea, which is free
Have
from
a
tannin.
charcoal biscuit, which is good for me.
Smoke 1 pipe of asthma mixture,
In the woodshed, if you please.
and dust the parlour and spray the
I
canal.
must put on rubber gloves and search the peak for fleas.
I must dust the blinds, and then I must raise them.
And before you let the sun in, mind it wipes its shoes.
Mary Ann Sailor's dreams of...
The Garden of Eden,
She comes in her smock frock and clogs.
away from the cool, scrubbed, cobbled kitchen, with the Sunday school pictures on the whitewashed wall, and the farmer's almanac hung above the settle, and the sides of bacon on the ceiling hooks, and goes down the cockle-shelled paths of that apple pie kitchen garden, ducking under the Jippo's clothes pegs, catching her apron on the blackcurrant bushes, past bean rows and onion bed and tomatoes ripening on the wall, toward the old man playing the harmonium in the orchard, and sits down on the grass at his side, and shells the green peas that grow up through the lap of her frock that brushes the dew.
Help!
Cries Organ Morgan, the organist, in his dreams.
There is perturbation and music in Coronation Street. All the spouses are honking like geese, and the baby's singing opera. P.C. Attila Reese has got his truncheon out and is playing cadenzas by the pump. The cows from Sunday Meadow ring like reindeer. And on the roof of Handel Villa, see the women's welfare hoofing bloomered in the moon.
Willy-nilly postman asleep up street walks 14 miles to deliver the post as he does every day of the night, and rat-a-tats hard and sharp on Mrs. Willy-nilly.
Don't spunk me, please, teacher.
But every night of her married life, she has been late for school. Sinbad sailors over the taproom of the Sailor's Arms hugs his damp pillow, whose secret name is...
Cosima Boynan.
Mrs. Rose Cottage's eldest, May, peels off her pink and white skin in a furnace, in a tower, in a cave, in a waterfall, in a wood, and waits there, raw as an onion, for Mr. Right to leap up the burning, tall, hollow splashes of leaves like a brilliantine trout.
Call me Dolores, like they do in the story.
And the inspectors of cruelty fly down into Mrs. Butcher Bynan's dream to persecute Mr. Bynan for selling...
Owl meat, dog's eyes, man chop.
Mr. Bynan, in Butcher's bloodied apron, spring heels down Coronation Street, a finger, not his own, in his mouth. Straight-faced, in his cunning sleep, he pulls the legs of his dreams and...
Hunting on pigback, shoots down the wild giblets.
The owls are hunting. Look, over Bethesda gravestones one hoots and swoops and catches a mouse by Hannah Reese, beloved wife. And in Coronation Street, which you alone can see, it is so dark under the chapel in the skies. The Reverend Eli Jenkins, poet, preacher, turns in his deep towards dawn sleep and dreams of
Eisteddfodau.
He intricately rhymes to the music of Cruth and Pibgorm all night long in his druid seedy nighty in a beer tent black with parchs. Mr. Pugh, schoolmaster, fathoms asleep, pretends to be sleeping, spies Foxy round the droop of his nightcap and... Psst, whistles up... Murder. Mrs. Organ Morgan, groceress, coiled grey like a dormouse, her paws to her ears, conjures...
Silence.
She sleeps very dulcet in a cove of wool, and trumpeting Organ Morgan at her side snores no louder than a spider. Time passes. Listen. Time passes. An owl flies home past Bethesda, to a chapel in an oak, and the dawn inches up. Stand on this hill. This is Llarigib Hill, old as the hills, high, cool, and green, and from this small circle of stones, made not by druids but by Mrs. Bynum's Billy, you can see all the town below you sleeping in the first of the dawn. You can hear the lovesick wood pigeons mooning in bed. A dog barks in his sleep, farmyards away. The town ripples like a lake in the waking haze. The principality of the sky lightens now over our green hill into spring morning, larked and crowed and belling. Who pulls the town hall bell rope but blind Captain Cat? One by one the sleepers are wrung out of sleep this one morning as every morning. And soon you shall see the chimney slow up flying snow as Captain Cat in sailor's cap and sea boots announces today with his loud get out of bed bell. The Reverend Eli Jenkins in Bethesda House gropes out of bed into his preacher's black, combs back his bard's white hair, forgets to wash, pads barefoot downstairs, opens the front door, stands in the doorway, and, looking out at the day and up at the eternal hill and hearing the sea break and the gab of birds, remembers his own verses and tells them softly to empty Coronation Street that is rising and raising its blinds.
Dear Gwalior, I know there are towns lovelier than ours, and fairer hills and loftier far, and groves more full of flowers, and boskier woods more blithe with spring, and bright with birds adorning, and sweeter bards than I to sing their praise this beauteous morning. A tiny dingle is Milkwood by Golden Grove neath Cronger, but let me choose, and oh, I should love all my life and longer to stroll among our trees and stray in Goosegog Lane on Donkey Down, and hear the dewies sing all day, and never, never leave the town.
Mr. Pugh, in the schoolhouse opposite, takes up the morning tea to Mrs. Pugh and whispers on the stairs.
Here's your arsenic, dear, and your weed killer biscuit. I've throttled your parakeet. I've spat in the vases. I've put cheese in the mouse holes. Here's your nice tea, dear.
Too much sugar.
You haven't tasted it yet, dear.
Too much milk, then. Has Mr. Jenkins said his poetry?
Yes, dear.
Then it's time to get up. Give me my glasses. No, not my reading glasses. I want to look out. I want to see.
Lily Smalls, the treasure, down on her red knees, washing the front step.
She's tucked her dress in her bloomers. Oh, the baggage.
P.C. Attila Reese, ox-broad, barge-booted, stamping out of handcuff house in a heavy beef-red huff, black-browed under his damp helmet.
He's going to arrest Polygata. Mark my words.
What for, dear?
For having babies.
And lumbering down towards the Strand to see that the sea is still there. Organ Morgan at his bedroom window, playing chords on the sill to the morning fishwife gulls who, heckling over Donkey Street, observe...
Me, dye bread, hurrying to the bakery, pushing in my shirt tails, buttoning my waistcoat. Ping goes a button. Why can't they sew them? No time for breakfast, nothing for breakfast. There's wives for you.
Me, Mrs. Dyebread one, capped and shawled and no corset. Nice to be comfy, nice to be nice. Clogging on the cobbles to stir up a neighbour. Oh, Mrs. Sarah, can you spare a loaf, love? Dyebread forgot the bread.
Me, Mrs. Dyebread too. Gypsy to kill in a silky scarlet petticoat above my knees. Dirty, pretty knees. See my body through my petticoat, brown as a berry. High heel shoes with one heel missing. Tortoiseshell comb in my bright black slinky hair. Nothing else at all but a dab of scent. Lolling, gaudy at the doorway. Tell your fortune in the tea leaves, scowling at the sunshine, lighting up my pipe.
Our frying pans spit, kettles and cats purr in the kitchen. The town smells of seaweed and breakfast, all the way down from Bayview, where Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard, in smock and turban, big bazoom to engage the dust, picks at her starchless bread and sips lemon rind tea, to Bottom Cottage, where Mr. Waldo, in bowler and bib, gobbles his bubble and squeak and kippers and swigs from the sauce bottle. Mr. Pugh
remembers ground glass as he juggles his omelette.
Mrs. Pugh,
Nags the salt cellar.
willy-nilly postman,
downs his last bucket of black brackish tea and rumbles out bandy to the clucking back where the hens twitch and grieve for their tea-soaked sops.
Mrs. Willy-nilly,
Full of tea to her double-chin brim, broods and bubbles over her coven of kettles on a hissing hot range, always ready to steam open the May.
the Reverend Eli Jenkins,
Finds a rhyme and dips his pen in his cocoa.
Captain Cat in his galley,
blind and fine-fingered, savours his sea fry.
From Bynum Butcher's in Coronation Street, the smell of fried liver sidles out with onions on its breath. And listen, in the dark breakfast room behind the shop, Mr. and Mrs. Bynum, waited upon by that treasure, enjoy between bites their every morning hullabaloo, and Mrs. Bynum slips the gristly bits under the tasseled tablecloth to her fat cat.
She likes the liver, Ben.
She ought to know best. It's her brother's.
Oh, do you hear that, Lily?
Yes, ma'am.
We're eating pusscat.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you cat butcher.
It was doctored, mind.
Oh, what's that got to do with it?
Yesterday we had more.
Oh, Lily.
Monday otter, Tuesday shrews.
Oh.
Go on, Mrs. Bynum. He's the biggest liar in town.
Don't you dare say that about Mr. Bynum.
Well, everybody knows it, man.
Mr. Bynum never tells a lie, do you, Ben?
No, Bess. And now I am going out after the corgis with my little cleaver.
Oh, Lily.
Up the street in the Sailor's Arms, Sinbad Sailors, grandson of Mary Ann Sailors, draws a pint in the sunlit bar. The ship's clock in the bar says 11:30. 11:30 is opening time. The hands of the clock have stayed still at 11:30 for 50 years. It is always opening time in the Sailor's Arms.
Here's to me, Sinbad.
All over the town, babies and old men are cleaned and put into their broken prams and wheeled onto the sunlit, cockled cobbles or out into the backyards under the dancing underclothes and left. A baby cries.
I want my pipe, and he wants his bottle.
Noses are wiped, heads picked, hair combed, paws scrubbed, ears boxed, and the children shrilled off to school. Fishermen grumble to their nets. No good boy who goes out in the dinghy Zanzibar, ships the oars, drifts slowly in the dab-filled bay, and lying on his back in the unbailed water among crabs' legs and tangled lines, looks up at the spring sky.
I don't know who's up there, and I don't care.
Syrup is sold in the post office. A car drives to market, full of fowls and a farmer. Milk churns stand at Coronation Corner like short, silver policemen. And sitting at the open window of Schooner House, blind Captain Cat hears all the mourning of the town.
Maggie Richards,
Wait a minute, I lost my compass.
Ricky Rees, Tommy Powell, our Sal, little Getaway, Billy Swansea with a dog's voice, one of Mr. Waldo's, Nasty Humphrey, Jackie with a sniff. Where's Dickie's auntie and the boy from T-Pant? Or perhaps they got the rash again. Somebody's hit Maggie Richards. 2-1 is Billy Swansea. Never trust a boy who barks. Right again. It's Billy.
And the children's voices cry away.
Well, that's willy-nilly knocking at Bayview. Rat-tat-tat, very soft. The knocker's got a kid glove on. Who sent a letter to Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard?
Morning, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard.
Good morning, postman.
Here's a letter for you with stamped and addressed envelope enclosed, all the way from Bilthwells. A gentleman wants to study birds. And can he have accommodation for 2 weeks and a bath vegetarian?
No.
You wouldn't know he was in the house, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard. He'd be out in the mornings at the bang of dawn with his bag of breadcrumbs and his little telescope.
And come home at all hours covered with feathers? I don't want persons in my nice clean rooms breathing all over the chairs.
Cross my heart, he won't breathe.
And putting their feet on my carpets and sneezing on my china and sleeping in my sheets.
He only wants a single bed, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard.
And back she goes to the kitchen to polish the potatoes. 3, 4, 5. That's Mrs. Rose Cottage. What's today? Today she gets a letter from her sister at Gorslas. How's the twins' teeth? You stopping at school hours?
Morning, Mrs. Pugh. Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard won't have a gentleman in from Bilthwells because he'll sleep in her sheets. Mrs. Rose Cottage's sister and Gorslas's twins have got to have them out.
Give me the parcel.
It's for Mr. Pugh, Mrs. Pugh.
Never you mind. What's inside it?
A book called Lives of the Great Poisoners.
There's the clip-clop of horses on the sun-honeyed cobbles of the humming streets, hammering of horseshoes, gobble, quack and cackle, tom-tit twitter from the bird-ounce boughs, braying on donkey down. Bread is baking, pigs are grunting, chop goes the butcher, milk churns bell, tills ring, sheep cough, dog shout, saws sing. Oh, the spring whinny and morning move from the clog-dancing farms, the gulls gab and rabble on the boat-bobbing river and sea, and the cockles bubbling in the sand, scamper of sanderlings, curlew cry, crow, caw, pigeon coo, clock strike, bull bellow, and the ragged gabble of the bear garden school as the women scratch and babble in Mrs. Organ Morgan's general shop, where everything is sold: custard, buckets, henna, rat traps, shrimp nets, sugar, stamps, confetti, paraffin, hatchets, whistles.
Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard.
La-di-da.
Got a man in Bilthwells.
And he got a little telescope to look at birds. Willy-nilly said, remember her first husband? He didn't need a telescope.
He looked at them and dressing through the keyhole.
And he used to shout, tally-ho! But Mr. Ogmore was a proper gentleman.
Even though he hanged his collie.
Men are brutes on the quiet. And how's Organ Morgan, Mrs. Morgan?
You look dead, beat.
It's Organ all the time with him. Up every night until midnight playing the organ.
Oh, I'm a martyr to music.
And in willy-nilly the postman's dark and sizzling, damp, tea-coated, misty, pygmy kitchen, where the spitting cat kettles throb and hop on the range, Mrs. Willy-nilly steams open Mr. Mog Edwards' letter to Miss Mavanu Price and reads it aloud to Willy-nilly by the squint of the spring sun through the one sealed window running with tears, while the drugged, bedraggled hens at the back door whimper and snivel for the licorice bog-black tea.
Business is very poorly. Polly Garter bought 2 garters with roses, but she never got stockings, so what is the use, I say? Mr. Waldo tried to sell me a woman's nightie outsize. He said he found it, and we know where. I sold a packet of pins to Sinbad Sailors to pick his teeth. If this goes on, I shall be in the poorhouse. My heart is in your bosom, and yours is in mine. God be with you always, Mavanui Price, and keep you lovely for me in his heavenly mansion. I must stop now and remain your eternal Mog Edward.
And then a little message with a rubber stamp. Shop at Moggs.
And willy-nilly, rumbling, jockeys out again to the 3-seated shack called the House of Commons in the back where the hens weep, and sees in sudden spring shine herring gulls heckling down to the harbour where the fishermen spit and prop the morning up, and eye the fishy sea smooth to the sea's end as it lulls in blue. Green and gold money, tobacco, tin salmon, hats with feathers, pots of fish paste, warmth for the winter to be, weave and leap in it rich and slippery in the flash and shapes of fishes through the cold sea streets. But with blue, lazy eyes, the fishermen gaze at that milkmaid whispering water with no ruck or ripple, as though it blew great guns and serpents and typhooned the town.
Too rough for fishing today.
And they thank God and gob at a gull for luck. And moss slow and silent make their way uphill from the still, still sea towards the sailors' arms as the children spank and scamper rough and singing out of school into the draggle-tail yard. And Captain Cat at his window says soft to himself the words of their song.
Fluffy snail, pepper baby in the milking pail. Fluffy snail, and Johnny Crack. One will pull it out, and one will put it back.
Oh, it's my turn now, said Flossie Snail, to take the baby from the milking pail. And it's my turn now, said Johnny Crack, to smack it on the head and put it back. Johnny Crack and Flossie Snail kept their baby in a milking pail. One would put it back and one would pull it out, and all it had to drink was ale and stout. Poor Johnny Crack and Flossie Snail always used to say the stout and ale was good for a baby in a milking pail.
Mrs. Diebread 1 and Mrs. Diebread 2 are sitting outside their house in Donkey Lane, one darkly, one plumply, blooming in the quick, dewy sun.
Cross my palm with silver. Silver? Out of our housekeeping money. Aha! What do you see, Luffy? I see a feather bed with 3 pillows on it and a text above the bed. I can't read what it says. There's great clouds blowing. Now they've blown away. God is love, the text says. That's our bed. And now it's vanished. The sun's spinning like a top. Who's this coming out of the sun? It's a hairy little man with big pink lips. He got a walleye. It's Diebread. The feather bed's floating back. The little man's taken his boots off. He's pulling his shirt over his head. He's beating his chest with his fists. He's climbing into bed. Go on. Go on. There's 2 women in bed. Yes. He looks at them both with his head cocked on one side. He's whistling through his teeth. Now he grips his little arms round one of the women. Which one? Which one? I can't see anymore. There's great clouds blowing again.
The mean old clouds.
The Reverend Eli Jenkins, busy on his morning calls, stops outside the welfare hall to hear Polly Garter as she scrubs the floors for the Mothers' Union dance tonight.
Oh, Tom, Dick, and Harry were 3 fine men, and I'll never have such loving again. But little Willie Wee, who took me on his knee, little Willie Weasel was the man for me.
Praise the Lord. We are a musical nation.
And the Reverend Eli Jenkins hurries on through the town to visit the sick with jelly and poems. The town's as full as a lovebird's egg.
There goes the Reverend,
says Mr. Waldo at the smoked herring-brown window of the unwashed Sailor's Arms.
with his brolly and his odes. Fill him up, Sinbad. I'm on the treacle today.
And the morning school is over, and Captain Cat at his curtained schooner's porthole, open to the spring sun tides, hears the naughty, forfeiting children tumble and rhyme on the cobbles. Gossamer Bynum high heels out of school.
I don't care if he is common.
She whispers to her salad day deep self.
I want to gobble him up. I don't care if he does drop his eggshells.
She tells the stripped and mother of the world, big-beamed and eve-hipped spring of herself.
So long as he's all cucumber and hooves.
Sinbad sailors watches her go by, demure and proud and schoolmarm, in her crisp flower dress and sun-defying hat, with never a look or lilt or wriggle, the butcher's unmelting ice-maiden daughter, veiled forever from the hungry hug of his eyes.
Oh, Gossamer Bynum, why are you so proud?
He grieves to his Guinness.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful Gossamer Bee, I wish that you were for me. I wish you were not so educated.
In the blind-drawn, dark dining room of schoolhouse, dusty and echoing as a dining room in a vault, Mr. and Mrs. Pugh are silent over cold, grey cottage pie. Mr. Pugh reads as he forks the shroud meat in from Lives of the Great Poisoners.
Persons with manners do not read at table. Some persons were brought up in pigsties.
Pigs don't read at table, dear. Pigs can't read, my dear.
I know one who can.
Alone in the hissing laboratory of his wishes, Mr. Pugh minces among bad bats and Jeroboams, tiptoes through spinneys of murdering herbs, agony dancing in his crucibles, and mixes, especially for Mrs. Pugh, a venomous porridge unknown to toxicologists, which will scald and viper through her until her ears fall off like figs, her toes grow big and black as balloons, and steam comes screaming out of her navel.
You know best, dear,
says Mr. Pugh, and quick as a flash, he ducks her in rat soup.
What's that book by a trough, Mr. Pugh?
It's a theological work, my dear. Lives of the great saints.
Mrs. Pugh smiles. An icicle forms in the cold air of the dining vault.
I saw you talking to a saint this morning. Saint Polygata. She was martyred again last night. Mrs. Organ Morgan saw her with Mr. Waldo.
And when they saw me, they pretended they were looking for nests,
said Mrs. Organ Morgan to her husband, with her mouth full of fish as a pelican's.
But you don't go nesting in long combinations, I said to myself, like Mr. Waldo was wearing, and you're dressed nearly over your head like Polygata's. Oh, they didn't fool me. And when you think of all those babies she's got, then all I can say is she'd better give up bird nesting, that's all I can say. It isn't the right kind of hobby at all for a woman who can't say no, even to midgets. Remember Bob Spit? He wasn't any bigger than a baby, and he gave her two. But they're two nice boys, I will say that. Fred Spit, another. Sometimes I like Fred best, and sometimes I like Arthur. Who do you like best, Organ?
Oh, Bach, without any doubt. Bach every time for me.
Organ, Morgan. You haven't been listening to a word I've said. It's Organ, Organ, all the time with you.
And then, Palestrina.
The sunny, slow, lulling afternoon yawns and moons through the dozy town. The sea lolls, laps, and idles in with fishes sleeping in its lap. The meadows still as Sunday. The shut-eye tasseled bulls, the goat and daisy dingles nap happy and lazy. The dumb duck ponds snooze. Clouds sag and pillow on Llarigib Hill. Captain Cat, at his window thrown wide to the sun and the clippered seas he sailed long ago when his eyes were blue and bright, slumbers and voyages. Ear-ringed and rolling, I love you, Rosie Probert, tattooed on his belly. He brawls with broken bottles in the fug and babel of the dark dog bars, roves with a herd of short and good time cows in every naughty port, and twines and souses with the drowned and blousy-breasted dead. He weeps as he sleeps and sails. Mrs. Probert?
From Duck Lane, Jack. Quack twice and ask for Rosie.
Is the one love of his sea life that was sardined with women.
What seas were rocking my little deckhand, my favorite husband, in your sea boots and hunger, my duck, my whaler, my honey, my daddy, my pretty sugar sailor, with my name on your belly, when you were a boy, long, long ago.
I'll tell you no lies. The only sea I saw was the seesaw sea with you riding on it. Lie down, lie easy. Let me shipwreck in your thighs. Rosie Probert.
Remember her. She is forgetting. The earth which filled her mouth is vanishing from her. Remember me. I have forgotten you. I am going into the darkness of the darkness forever. I have forgotten that I was ever born.
Look, Captain Cat is crying. He's crying all over his nose.
The afternoon buzzes like lazy bees round the flowers round May Rose Cottage.
He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me.
The dirty old fool.
Lazy she lies alone in clover and sweet grass, 17 and never been sweet in the grass. Ho ho. The Reverend Eli Jenkins, inky in his cool front parlour or poem room, tells only the truth in his life work. The population, main industry, shipping, history, topography, flora and fauna of the town he worships in. The White Book of Llarigid. Portraits of famous bards and preachers, all fur and wool from the squint to the kneecaps, hang over him heavy as sheep, next to faint lady watercolours of pale green milkwood like a lettuce salad, dying. His mother, propped against a palm in a pot, with a wedding ring waist and bust like a black cloth dining table, suffers in her stays.
Oh, angels, be careful there with your knives and forks,
he prays. There is no known likeness of his father, Esau, who, undog-collared because of his little weakness, was scythed to the bone one harvest by mistake when sleeping, with his weakness, in the corn. He lost all ambition and died with one leg.
Poor Dad.
Grieved the Reverend Eli.
To die of drink and agriculture.
Now the town is dusk. Each cobble, donkey, goose and gooseberry street is a thoroughfare of dusk and ceremonial dust, and night's first darkening snow, and the sleep of birds drift under and through the live dusk of this place of love. Llarigid is the capital of dusk. Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard, at the first drop of the dusk showers, seals all her sea-view doors, draws the germ-free blinds, sits erect as a dry dream on a high-backed, hygienic chair, and wills herself to cold, quick sleep. At once, at twice, Mr. Ogmore and Mr. Pritchard, who all dead day long have been gossiping like ghosts in the woodshed, planning the loveless destruction of their glass widow, reluctantly sigh and sidle into her clean house.
You first, Mr. Ogmore.
After you, Mr. Pritchard.
No, Mr. Ogmore. You widowed her first.
I love you both.
Oh, Mrs. Ogmore. Oh, Mrs. Pritchard.
Soon it will be time to go to bed. Tell me your tasks, in order.
We must take our pajamas from the drawer-marked pajamas.
And then you must take them off.
Down in the dusking town, May Rose Cottage, still lying in clover, listens to the nanny goats chew, draws circles of lipstick round her nipple.
I'm fast. I'm a bad lot. God will strike me dead. I'm 17. I'll go to hell.
She tells the goats.
You just wait. I'll sin till I blow up.
And at the doorway of Bethesda House, the Reverend Jenkins recites to Claregid Hill his sunset poem.
Every morning when I wake, dear Lord, a little prayer I make. Oh, please to keep thy lovely eye on all poor creatures born to die. And every evening at sundown I ask a blessing on the town. For whether we last the night or no, I'm sure is always touch and go. We are not holy, bad or good, who live our lives under milkwood. And thou, I know, wilt be the first to see our best side, not our worst. Oh, let us see another day. Bless us this holy night, I pray. And to the sun we all will bow and say goodbye, but just for now.
Dusk is drowned forever until tomorrow. It is all at once night now. The windy town is a hill of windows, and from the lapped waves the lights of the lamps in the windows call back the day and the dead that have run away to sea. All over the calling dark, babies and old men are bribed and lullabied to sleep.
Hush-a-bye, baby, the Sandman is coming.
Rock-a-bye, grandpa in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Down will come grandpa, whiskers and all.
Blind Captain Cat climbs into his bunk. Like a cat, he sees in the dark. Through the voyages of his tears, he sails to see the dead.
Dancing Williams.
Still dancing.
Jonah Jarvis.
Still. Curly Bevan Skull.
Rosie with God, she has forgotten dying.
The thin night darkens. The breeze from the creased water sighs the streets close under milk-waking wood. The wood, whose every tree foot's cloven in the black glad sight of the hunters of lovers, that is a God-built garden to Mary Ann sailors who knows there is heaven on earth and the chosen people of his kind fire in Claregib's land. That is the fair day farmhands wantoning ignorant chapel of bridesbeds, and to the Reverend Eli Jenkins a green-leaved sermon on the innocence of men. The suddenly wind-shaken wood springs awake for the second dark time, this one spring day.